Sure, sure.
Great. Okay, so today I thought it would be fun if we kind of had a bit of a conversation and we could talk a bit about classroom expressions in the classroom. So we started talking about figurative language versus literal language, and even more so, we were talking about idioms in the previous classes we had together. And I believe it was Vicky asked about some idioms or expressions that might be used in the classroom with students. And I wanted to give this some thought, and I even reached out to some friends I have who work as teachers and in classrooms and in childcare about this. So we'll get to that a little later, but we can have some fun with that and explore some common expressions or idioms in the classroom. So, all right, but to get started, I just thought it would be nice to review a little bit together. I don't know about you all, but I was just saying it feels like it's been so long for some reason. It's been very hot over here, so maybe that's why. But a review is always good. All right, so my first question is, what is an idiom? And if anyone wants to give an example of an idiom, there are a few here. So let's see. What is an idiom? Anyone feel free to say it. Also, sorry, can you all see my screen okay, or do you want me to share it? You can see it okay? Okay, great. All right, so what is an idiom? Anyone want to share their definition? No? Okay. So an idiom is an expression, it's a type of figurative language, which we'll go over in a second, where what is the expression is does not match its literal meaning. So for example, we see here a few idioms, so such as broken heart. When you have a broken heart, it's not actually broken, it's not physically broken. What it means to say that you have a broken heart is to feel very sad or to feel very upset over something, usually the loss of a relationship, typically a romantic relationship, not always, but that is an idiom. So it's a broken heart, but it's not actually broken. It's just the pain, emotional pain someone feels over losing something or someone or a situation. And a few here, we had these two guys, like I said, broken heart. And then we had let your mind wander. So we see a brain here who looks like it's going for a hike. Now, of course, when someone says they let their mind wander, they don't actually mean their brain got up and walked away. What they mean is they let their thoughts kind of go wherever they'd like to go. They're not particularly focused on anything specifically. They're just kind of letting their selves daydream and think about whatever they'd like to think about. All right, and one more. We did not talk about this one yet, but I saw this guy and I thought it was a bit funny. Fast food. Now, the literal translation, fast food, as we see by this picture, we see there's some food, French fries, running. So being fast, running. But fast food actually means food that you can get quickly, or maybe through something like a drive-through, or maybe it's pre-made. So fast food. Okay. All right, so that is kind of under the umbrella of figurative language. So we talked about literal language versus figurative language. So sort of like we said, literal language means the actual thing. So these drawings are all the literal example. So versus figurative language, which means much more of an expression or something that it symbolizes or means. Okay, so I'd like to invite you all to say some idiom or figurative language, maybe it's something that we've talked about or something you've heard outside of our sessions that you thought was interesting or an example that you've heard. So let's see. Claire, could you give us an example?
I think I have heard an example. It was called like break a leg.
Yes, yes. And can you explain that, please?
Originally, I found that it's break someone's leg, but finally I found its meaning is called is hope someone have a good luck. So I think it's a very interesting one.
Yeah, and that's one that's very close to me. I know that expression well. It's commonly said in theater performances, actors and plays. So yes, it's said to say break a leg to actors before they perform, and it's actually bad luck to say good luck to them when they are about to perform. So yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean to actually break their legs or their legs on their body. It means good luck. Yeah, awesome. Great example. Okay, let's see. Vicky with an IE, do you have an example you could share?
I saw the idiom called black sheep.
Oh, yes.
It's not the literal meaning. Means the animal is another kind meaning. Means someone do something that we don't like it. How to express it? Yeah. So yeah, it's not the meaning what we see in the literal. Yeah.
Right. So black sheep. So this, yeah, commonly refers to a member of a group. So usually someone might say they're the black sheep of a family, which kind of means they're the outcast. They're not alike the other people in their family, or maybe it's a classroom or a group of friends. But yeah, but they're not actually a sheep that is black. They are someone who does not quite fit in.
Yes.
Yeah. Great example. Awesome. Thank you. Vicky with a Y, do you have an example?
Yes, I heard one idiom about cat got your tongue.
Yes, yes. And can you share what that means?
That means that when someone is speechless or not talking, so means cannot talk anything.
Yeah, wonderful. Great explanation. Yeah, cat's got your tongue. Usually a funny way to say why aren't you saying anything? Awesome. All right, because a cat doesn't literally have someone's tongue, or just an expression. Okay, thank you. Andrea, do you have an example?
I heard blank slate. That means new day or new starts or new pages.
Yeah, I actually used that expression today, believe it or not. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, blank slate. So sometimes people might use this literally, like they have something that they can physically work on, like a blank canvas or something. But yeah, often it figuratively means to have a new start to something completely new. Awesome. Perfect. Okay. Sarita, how about you?
I think of a phrase, drink like a fish. It actually means drink a lot of alcohol, not it, it does not emphasize that the person drink like a fish.
Right, right. Yeah, they're not physically like a fish or anything. But yeah, they might be drinking a lot of alcohol or other fluids. Yeah, perfect. Nice job. And Doris, I know you're joining us, but I wanted to invite you as well if you have any idioms or expressions you like or any questions you have.
Yeah, here. I want to share some idioms here. I just come up with eat a horse. I'm so hungry that I can eat a horse. Means
Yes, yes.
very hungry. And another one here is I'm so nervous, so I have a butterfly in my stomach.
Yes,
Yeah.
good one. That's a great one.
Okay, and how about a heartthrob? Is it an idiom that when someone is cute and you like it, maybe someone on TV, and you say, "Wow, he's such a heartthrob to me." Or
That's a good question. Yeah, let's talk about that. So heartthrob. So yeah, it's kind of like you said, it's describing someone thinks is cute or, something they might like. And would it be considered an idiom? So I guess so, because they're not actually a part of the heart or anything like that. It's more an expression saying how it makes someone feel. So I would absolutely consider that a figurative language. I never thought of that example before. That's a good question.
Thank you.
Great, wonderful, awesome. So many great examples. Yeah, you all thought of so many, and I've shared this with you all, but it always surprises me to hear these very common expressions and to be reminded how common they are in the English language. And like I mentioned with blank slate, I used that not too many hours ago when I was with my family and saying, oh yeah, it's like a blank slate, start new, not even realizing. And even yesterday, I was listening to my brother and my mother have a conversation where, idioms were used as well as figurative language. So it really shows how common it is in our language that these things come up. Great. Right. And as we see here, we kind of had this little picture last week, I believe. And here's our little guide to literally versus figuratively. Sort of, we dove into this already. And as we know, so literally refers to what is exactly happening and precisely true. So, for example, if someone said break a leg, literally they're saying, I want you to break your leg to have an injury. But that's not what they're saying. They're saying this figurative, they're saying it figuratively. So it's a written, and it's an analogy or a metaphor or something that it doesn't actually mean the literal form of what they're saying. What they're really saying is good luck. Great. All right. So as I shared before, I talked to some friends and kind of got their some ideas of what kind of expressions to use in the classroom, and we'll hear from that in a second. But it also made me realize that there are several idioms or expressions that are about school or the classroom, and there's also ones that are commonly used in the classroom. So this one, I sort of found this fun image online. So this was more about relating to school. Some of them are also used in the classroom. We'll look more into it. And let's take a look here. So I'm going to scroll in a little bit so they're a little bit more easy to see. All right. Can you see that okay? All right, great. So first we have bookworm. So you can raise your hand if you've heard this expression before. You can use the little icon on Skype. Anyone? Oh, Luke has. So a bookworm, okay, Vicky, Sarita. So bookworm, as you may know, refers to someone who reads a lot of books. So commonly, it is a person who is always seen with a book in their hands, or they're spending any time they have reading. They love to read. They love books. So again, we might see this in a school specifically where there are a lot of books and a lot of people. But yes, a bookworm. And of course, we see the literal drawing here. It's always make it so fun. Okay, so a next one, and this one I would say is very commonly used, usually going into an exercise that students may be doing, brainstorm. And let's actually all say these together. So repeat after me. Brainstorm.
Brainstorm.
Awesome. So of course, no storm is actually happening. This is more just a method to develop new ideas. So either the teacher can stand at the front of the class, maybe with a chalkboard or whiteboard, and they might say to their entire class, all right, let's brainstorm. Let's brainstorm ideas for maybe they're having some sort of party with their parents or something, and maybe they're thinking of fun things to do or something like that. So it could be a group activity, or let's brainstorm what are some ideas that we can do for the holidays that is coming up, something like that, or community kindness. So maybe it's something they do all together. Someone can also brainstorm individually. I'm sure we all have done this at some point with a pen and paper, and you write down ideas for something that you have, maybe a paper you're writing, or ideas for a lesson plan, or anything that might come up. So just trying to challenge yourselves. It's more you think a lot and trying to get creative or think outside the box in the brainstorm. Okay, so let's scroll down a little bit here. Okay, repeat after me. Copycat.
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 Awesome. So this is not, sorry, I'm having some issues scrolling. So this isn't particularly a kind or positive phrase, though it is common. So someone who copies the work of another. So of course, we don't want anyone who is copying another or taking their work and saying it's their own. That's no good. So if someone's a copycat, that means that they are taking the work from another and using it as their own. So another word kind of as someone who cheats, they're a copycat. All right, let's take a look at this next one. Hit the books. Let's all say
books.
In the books.
Hit the books.
Wonderful. All right, so to hit the books, and this is a very casual expression, means that they're going to study. I feel like this is more common for high school age or even college or university age. You know, they're more older ages typically go to study very hard, harder. So they might say, oh, I'm going to go hit the books. So that's where I've heard it more, but it could apply to any age as well, to study really hard. And of course, they're not actually hitting the books. That means they're just going to go spend a lot of time studying for whatever it might be, maybe a test or some other exam. All right, great. Okay, next, repeat after me. Pass with flying colors.
Pass with flying colors.
Flying colors.
Okay, wonderful. So again, in our grading system, there's no colors, necessarily that has to do with whether you pass or fail. So when someone says I passed with flying colors, that means they usually got a very high mark or grade on whatever it is that they were taking, whether it's a test or an entire course. If you pass with flying colors, that is a good sign. That's a good thing. All right, next, repeat after me. Skip class.
Skip class.
Skip class.
Okay, great. And of course, this does not necessarily mean you are skipping or jumping rope as the picture suggests. It just means you don't go to school or a particular class that you should be going to. So someone skipped math class, then that means they, instead of going to their class, they went somewhere else. Or if they skipped school, again, they're not actually doing exercise. Instead, they are stayed home, or maybe they went somewhere else, or yes, they just did not go. Okay. Okay, next, repeat after me. Drop out.
Drop out. Drop out.
So this can be a noun or a verb depending on the context or the sentence. So if someone says they dropped out of school, so that means they stopped attending, or you could also say, oh, they are a dropout, which means that they stopped going to school, and maybe they went to do something else, like go work or help family, whatever it is. So yeah, that means they dropped out. They're not going to school anymore. And again, can be used as a, in this particular picture, I believe it's supposed to be the noun. So this person in the middle there with the red shirt is a dropout. Again, it looks like they're falling through some sort of window, but no, they're not falling. They just left school. Okay, and the last one, repeat after me. Teacher's pet.
Teacher's pet.
Teacher's pet.
And of course, this does not refer to a teacher's actual pet or literal pet. It does not suggest the teacher's cat or dog or any pet. It's a teacher's favorite student. So this is not usually ever dictated by the teacher. Someone might say you are a teacher's pet, or you know, sometimes you hear, oh, don't be a teacher's pet, sort of meaning that, you know, that someone is the favorite student and maybe their classmate is jealous, so they don't want their friend to be the teacher's pet, whatever it might be. So this is more so the student that a teacher may seem to favor, or other students might think that a teacher favors. So for whatever reason that might be. Okay, so like I mentioned, some of these are more so about school, not so much words that are commonly used in school, though some of them are, like brainstorm or hit the books, I'd say are more common. But does anyone have any questions about any of these before we move on? No? Oh, Andrea.
Bridget, I want to ask a question. So when we found students they didn't pay attention in class, we can say the students are dropouts. Is okay?
No, so if they don't pay attention, that's a bit different. So dropout means it's sort of they completely left school. They are not going to graduate. They aren't going to come back. If I think of an expression, so one actually that might work is, oh, you let your mind wander. if they're not paying attention, that would be more fitting for that context. But dropout specifically refers to someone who left school completely and they are not coming back to school due to other circumstances. They're not going to graduate or move on to the next level, whatever that might be. Does that answer your question?
Yes. So is it similar with skip class?
So skip class, yes. So this could happen with an individual class. So for example, if I was a student in your class and I did not come to class one day because I decided I was gonna go to the mall, or maybe I was going to go to the movies, or usually it's something that is not school related, then I would have skipped class. And usually in that context, maybe students want to be more sneaky about it, or they don't want to tell their teacher that they're skipping class because they don't want to get in trouble, of course. So hopefully we don't see any students who are skipping class for those reasons, of course. But yes, if someone skips class, it's not yeah, you could always say, oh, did you skip class? Or why did you skip class the other day? That could be also like a more friendly way to say, oh, did you skip class the other day? Meaning, why weren't you here? So that it's can suggest someone's being absent from the class.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. And Sarita, did you raise your hand too?
Yes. It seems that teacher's pet is not a good term for students, for most of the students. Is that right?
Yes. So teacher's pet. So if a student calls another student teacher's pet, usually it's not a positive term, just like you said. They could be teasing each other about it, or maybe they say, oh, you're a teacher's pet. And maybe, I don't know, they're trying to make a point, or maybe they're jealous or something like that. But it can happen where they're not always using it as a positive term.
Thank you.
Yes. So some of these, hopefully we don't see them in a lot of contexts, but they are interesting expressions to know that can be about the classroom or about students in particular. And we can talk about that a little bit more. Oops. All right, so my question is, do any of you use any of these similar expressions in your classrooms, or have you seen them before? And feel free to raise your hand if you want to share. Andrea. Go ahead.
I use brainstorm before in my class. When I want students to discuss something, and maybe we will use some notes and have students to brainstorm. So I will say, oh, everybody, that's brainstorm time, and everybody, you think about by yourself, then we discuss.
Perfect. Great. Yeah. Yeah. And perfect. And Vicky, I saw you raise your hand as well. Vicky with an IE.
I once use the skip class for my students. Yeah, because he has a long vacation and he doesn't want to go to school. So I say you skip class again.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And we might use it as a way to open up that conversation with that student to say, what's going on? How can I help you? Perfect. And Claire, did you raise your hand as well?
Yes. Sometimes I will use like skip class or brainstorm in my class. And also, I think the copycat is a funny one, because how come a cat can copy someone else? So I think it's quite interesting to you as well.
Yeah, I don't know how that term started, and it can be funny. Yeah, because I feel like of all the animals, a cat is the least likely to copy. I feel like a dog would copy a human more. So I don't know if it's because it has that C sound, the alliteration. But yeah, it is kind of a funny word, but it kind of goes off the tongue. It's a quick word. It's catchy. So maybe that's why. I don't know. All right, great. So let's move on a little bit here. So some more examples that I thought of, and as I was sort of thinking about this, that I remembered are these ones here. So put on your thinking cap. So this one's a little bit more literal than the other one. So students aren't actually putting on their cap, though I have seen teachers act it out with young students saying, okay, let's put on our thinking caps. So they'll pretend to put on a hat on their head, maybe before they're brainstorming or before, they're going into another exercise. So that's a fun one, especially for younger students to pretend, and maybe they'll act out the literal meaning to it instead of, just doing it, just brainstorming. All right, another one, draw a blank. So sort of an oxymoron. You can't really draw something that's blank. But this expression is more like you can't think of anything. So have any of you ever, and feel free to raise your hands, ever asked a student something and they just have a moment where they don't know what to say or completely forget the answer? Or has anyone themselves ever done that? I know I have, or have had students who've done that. Yeah, Vicky. Yeah, and Claire. So you can almost see it in their eyes, and they almost have a panic. They're like, oh no, I forgot the answer. Oh, and it's okay. We all do it. It's human, right? Where they draw a blank, they completely forget. So it's almost like your mind just goes blank, but you're not actually drawing anything. All right, so class clown. Does anyone want to give a guess on what this means, class clown? Feel free to raise your hand. Oh wow, so many. Vicky, I saw your hand. Go ahead with an IE.
I think that's a student who like to tell some joke or make fun to everyone. Yeah, so that's what we say class clown. In Chinese, I think we have a similar meaning like that.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Yeah, and so it sounds like, yeah, you have a term that you use. What's the term? I'm curious.
Just clown, 小丑. In Chinese.
Say it one more. Can you say it one more time?
小丑.
小丑?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, someone who's kind of joking around. Let's see, Doris, did you want to add?
Yeah, I have the same feeling about this term. I think it's a positive term, right? Is it positive? Yeah, because
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. In Chinese, we said someone is 开心果, meaning that he always brings some joy and some pleasant to the class. Yeah, and it's positive. And I wonder if this term is also means the same.
I think that it can sometimes be a positive thing and sometimes it's a negative thing. I think it always depends on the student or the person that it's referring to. I think more and more it is being seen as a positive, but there are times or cases where the class clown can be seen as very disruptive to the class and not very productive, and more of someone who's distracting or preventing learning than making it fun or joyful for others. I think also this can happen. So maybe some days they're maybe disruptive, maybe other days they are more productive or joyful. So I think it can go either way. And I think it depends on who you are too as a person. Maybe you don't like that, or maybe you're very serious and maybe you like the laugh. So it depends. But that's good to know too, that yeah, it is always fun to have a laugh, especially in a learning environment. But I would say there are times where class clowns can be seen as disruptive, and depending on the class or the teacher, they might see it positive or negative, or make it a better situation or a more disruptive situation. So, all right, great. Yeah, so I feel like we've all met class clowns, or maybe some of us were class clowns. All right, great. Okay, so for kicks. So something is for kicks. Anyone have an idea of what this means? Curious. Any thoughts? No? Oh, Claire, what do you think?
I think it's described that you want to do something because it's very interesting or exciting.
Yeah, so close. So for kicks is like for fun. So if you just, yeah, kind of exactly what you said, actually. So maybe you're doing something for kicks because you think it might be fun or interesting or exciting, just like you said. So for example, maybe someone is doing an experiment and they decide to mix two things together for kicks because why not? They just want to see what happens. So, a teacher or students, maybe when they're brainstorming or maybe when they're doing something like an experiment. So a student, we know how creative and thoughtful students can be. Maybe they'll suggest something and a teacher will say, yeah, let's do it for kicks. We have no reason not to. So let's see what happens when maybe mixing things together or maybe when we have some fun with language or whatever it might be. Great. All right, perfect. So next, know it by heart. Anyone have any thoughts of what this means? When someone knows something by heart. Sarita, what do you think?
It means someone knows something very deeply, and someone will remember something very deeply.
Yeah, wonderful. So yeah, someone knows or has memorized or knows something very, very well. So maybe a song or the alphabet. We all might know that by heart. Always remember it. Or maybe something else. Maybe someone's very good at multiplication tables in math and they know multiplication tables by heart. So we all have our strengths there. Great. Okay, lose your marbles. What does anyone have thoughts on what that means? Someone loses their marbles, or when you lose your marbles. All right. Oh, Sarita, go ahead.
Does it mean that someone loses his chance to win the game?
Oh, not quite. Let's see, Claire, what do you think? I saw your hand too.
I think does that mean that lose somebody's mind?
Yeah, similar. So it means like if someone loses their marbles, it means they may be quick to anger, or maybe they are expressing their frustration really quickly, usually over something that's a bit more trivial. So for example, if a student, there's an expression as well as like don't cry over spilt milk, which means, if something falls over, things like an accident happens, is you don't need to have an extreme reaction. Don't lose your marbles. It's kind of another way of saying calm down, or in a more fun, kid-friendly language. Yeah. All right. And our last one, zero in on it. Any thoughts on what this might mean? To zero in on something? Vicky, what do you think?
It means that pay attention in the class and hit the books like that.
So yeah, I heard you say hit the books and say it one more time. I just lost what you said. Can you say it one more time?
Okay. Means pay attention in the class and ask students to hit the book.
Yeah, so the first part's more so to pay attention, to zero in on something mostly means to focus. So if you are all talking about maybe a type of grammar, and say you're talking about parts of speech, for example, and so say then if the teacher says, okay, let's zero in on nouns, let's zero in on it. That means that they're going to focus right now on nouns, and they're going to focus on that part of speech specifically. So that's an example. So zero in means to focus on one specific thing. All right. Okay, does anyone have any questions on any of these before we move on? Okay, Doris.
I have a question for the second idiom, draw a blank. Now, how do you use it in a sentence? For example, I just drew. Do I use the past tense, or how do you use it?
Yes, so you can use it in a past tense or present tense, or so for example, if we go back to the example of the student in the class, and you ask them the question and they say, oh, I'm drawing a blank. That means that, oh, I don't know. Or say if you're referring to it later on, say I'm the student and I'm telling the story later on to a friend of mine, be like, oh yes, teacher called on me in class and I drew a blank. Like I didn't know. So you can use it in either context.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Sarita, you have a question?
I don't know how to use it. Just now you mentioned that it means focus on something. Can parents use this phrase to tell their child, zero in on your study?
Sorry, Sarita, I couldn't quite hear you. You're a little quiet.
Can parents use the phrase, zero in on it, to tell the child to focus on the studies?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think more so, it maybe not so much. So maybe a parent would be more likely to say, oh, why don't you go hit the books? That might be a more common expression to suggest a student or someone's child to study. Zero in on it means to, maybe if a parent was helping their child and saying, oh, look, let's focus. It's more on like a specific thing, not a general assignment, I think, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's take a look. So why are these said? So as we know as teachers, so there are many different reasons why we might use these expressions, either in classroom or outside the classroom, depending. So we use these expressions for different reasons. So, and we'll talk about this more in a second as well. So behavior management. So maybe if we say let's zero in on it, maybe that is a way to get your whole class to focus. Transition times, which we'll talk more in about a moment. So as we know, when we are coming into class or maybe about to leave class, and students kind of get more, maybe they want to talk or maybe they want to get up because they're hungry and ready to go to a recess or whatever it might be. So this might be a way to kind of get them to focus on what they're doing before they do it or after they're coming into your class. And description. So maybe in a way to like also draw your students in to get them to be more engaged in what they're doing. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the next slide really quick just so we can take a look at these. So as I mentioned at the start of class, so I was inspired a bit and I asked some friends of mine who work in classrooms about what common idioms that they use in their classrooms. Now, many of my friends who responded work with preschool age, so 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. Some of them work with some older students that are school age. So some of these, a lot of these refer to transition times that we're just talking about. So when they're going to do something, or yeah, I guess more so when they're about to go do something. So taking a look at the first few. So shake a leg. So again, they're not actually shaking a leg, although I've seen in preschool classrooms or kindergarten classrooms, students might actually jokingly shake their leg while they're standing in line or about to go to their next activity or wherever they might need to go. So shake a leg means to just start going, to go somewhere, and usually pretty quickly. So shake a leg means to go. And step on it, very similar. So if you say, and step on it, means to sort of start doing whatever you want them to do. So for example, if you ask them to do something such as an assignment, you could be like, okay, and step on it, which means and go. Okay, so move it or lose it means to, again, for a student to move, to do something. This is kind of a funny one as well. And let's rock and roll and let's hit the road. Both also suggest saying, all right, we're going to leave this one place and we're going to go to a next place. So let's hit the road. So and let's rock and roll. So that means that it's a final conclusion as, okay, we're all going to go now. We're all going to move together and go to this next place. So those are all very common, at least from people I know, transition language tools that kids have fun with, again, because, you know, they might actually shake their leg, or if they step on it, they might pretend they're stepping on something on the ground. So they can have some fun with these as well. And the last two, very quickly, I know we're running low on time. I'm all ears. So this, of course, does not mean that someone is covered in only ears. It means that they are listening and they are fully focused and listening to what a student has to say. So if a student wants to tell a story, for example, a teacher might say, okay, I'm all ears, meaning I'm listening to you and my focus is on you. They're zeroed in on that student. And another expression that someone said that they've used is it's raining cats and dogs, which can be used inside the classroom or out. Of course, it's not actually raining any animals outside, but more so that the weather, it has turned to rain and it is pouring rain outside, and usually someone's just noticing and they're saying, oh gosh, it's raining cats and dogs, meaning it's raining very hard. All right. So I know there's a lot of idioms and expressions, and I'm happy to hear if anyone has any questions or anyone has anything they want to share. I'm here to listen. If anyone quickly wants to say anything, you're welcome to. Oh. Well, we can continue talking more about common classroom idioms and expressions, and even some techniques that are commonly used. We can talk about that a bit more next week. I love having these conversations with you all, and thank you so much for joining, and I hope to see you next week.
Okay, thank you for this great lesson. I think we have 2 more weeks with the dog class.
Oh wow. Time flies.
Yes,
It's another expression, huh?
Yeah,
time really does fly.
So our last one will be August 26th, our time. Yours will be 25th.
All right. Well, we'll have some good times and then classes to come, and we'll make sure we have some good conversation.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you,
Bridget.
Bye.
Thank you, Bridget.
Bye bye.
Thank you all. Bye.